And Houston, there was a program that had Andre Ware. He won the Heisman. And this guy, David Klingler, he was like the next big thing coming in. You beat them 40-10. I think it was on Thursday night on ESPN. And you beat them 40-10,
First
dominated them.
Thursday night game ever.
Yeah, huh?
That was the first Thursday night broadcast they ever had.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, just a dominant performance. Talk about that, man. How you beat them 40-10.
Yeah, that game, that defensive line coach went to Miami, and so he had been talking to Kehoe all week, and this was the statement game that they were looking for to make their program legit, possibly get them into the Southwest Conference, and then we came in, we just stomped all over the park because that offense has a weak lead, and we had extra week off, so coaching staff had a whole extra week to just basically pillage through the Notre Dame film. It was, we did a great job of preparation, and it showed.
Yeah, the defense of Miami did a great job. Defensive line was outstanding. The defensive front
Oh yeah.
had 5 sacks. So, and then about David Klingler, he came off throwing 9 touchdowns the previous week against Louisiana Tech. But again, obviously this is a big success for him, and he just didn't do the job. He just didn't get the job done. So Redder had 4 touchdown passes. Go ahead.
They look really good on film. I remember watching their defense. You thought, man, these guys got some studs. But then, it took us about a possession and a half to slow them down and then give a chance to figure out what they're doing. But we did it.
Yeah, and also with this win, Miami had won their 39th home game in a row, and that tied Notre Dame for the second longest such streak in NCAA history. So that was an impressive win right there. Now, the next game I want to get into is Penn State. That was a big win. First time that these two teams met since the '87 Fiesta Bowl. You win that game 26-20. Very close game, tough game, but you pulled it out. Talk about that game.
And wow, baited you, huh? Yeah. Well, 91, was interesting that we got better each week. I think we didn't really have any off games that year. Maybe Oklahoma State because we had some turnovers early on, but it was never really a game. Game that really stuck out to me, for me, was the Arizona game. They gave me the offensive game ball. Um, they came with a lot of exotic blitzes, and it took us a half, but we got it done. It was a fun year. We had lost 12 starters the year before to the draft, 11 or 12, and we come back with all these new pieces, and it's as if we had all been playing together for 15 years. I mean, the year before, Horace didn't even really play, because there wasn't a lot of room. We had, Wesley Carroll and Randall Hill, and then Lamar got the other position. But, Bobby Bird and a couple other guys. I mean, it was a crowded room. But, we made it look good.
Yeah, in that game, Horace Copeland caught an 80-yard touchdown pass. Kelvin Williams ran for a 91-yard punt return for a touchdown. And Mark Thomas.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and that game actually is a historical game in that it got, the portions of the game got interrupted for Clarence Thomas's.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have that game on my YouTube, in my YouTube folder, but yeah, Kevin Williams' touchdown is not on the television copy because they were, but that was I'll never forget that punt return, and that I remember I was standing, by the sideline, and I had put my helmet on, and I was getting ready to run on the field, and I looked down the field, and I saw him catch it, and then 3 seconds later, I was going back to the bench, like, oh well. mean, he didn't get touched. It was just, I wish I could find someone, anybody listening that has the full TV copy without the interruptions, because it missed a lot of the good touchdowns, a couple of touchdowns he had. And, ironically, who knew that our future head coach was the starting tight end for this team?
Oh yeah,
And I actually went head to head with D'Onofrio the whole game because he was the middle linebacker.
Yeah, Al Golden, will become the coach of Miami. Yeah, I remember that with Clarence Thomas. That's the sexual harassment case with Anita Hill. Yeah, I remember that.
Yes,
Yeah, it was interrupted because the nation, that was a big story at that time in '91, 30 years ago. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, definitely familiar with that. So that was a big win. Lamar Thomas caught a 42-yard touchdown catch to make it 26-14, but it came down to the wire. Darrell Williams made a goal line interception. He was able to preserve that win. Now, fast forward to obviously the game of the year, number 1 versus number 2, Florida State versus Miami. It speaks for itself as a big game, the biggest game probably in the rivalry. 17-16, number 1 versus number 2. Wide right, part 1. Talk about that game.
I mean, the game up to that week, during the week of preparation, the hype was, for that time, for that era, it was probably one of the more hyped games I could think of in that span. Like if you go back from say 85 to say 95, I think, obviously the Fiesta Bowl with Miami and Penn State was hyped. But as far as regular season games, the game that this game rivaled as far as regular season hype, there were only 2 games I think that I remember that had this type of hype. It was the '86 Miami-Oklahoma game in the Orange Bowl and the '93 Notre Dame FSU game when, Notre Dame beat FSU, but Florida State won a championship. But this one was, we had so many more extra media people, and I remember I made a statement when I had my turn to media about Washington because they were coming up, they were tied with us, and they put my statement on the front of the Washington Seattle newspaper, and Coach Erickson's father was getting death threats. This is crazy. But that game, I mean, being in the huddle and not being able to hear Gino and, being down like we were and how we came back, I still don't know how we won that game. It was just 2 teams just punching it out. And, as it turns out, our special teams was better than their special teams, but it shouldn't have been that close. I think our defense was, made the mistake of playing prevent a little too much, just like everybody else does. Prevent prevents you from winning, and it almost cost us, the game. But the football gods were on our side, and it's become a historical game. And every now and then, when I'm not feeling great, I'll flip that game on and watch it. I may watch it today, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing about that game is that Florida State had a 16-7 lead, and it's like those games with Florida State, Miami. Florida State always had control of the game the first 3 quarters, but the 4th quarter, Miami always turned it up and found a way to win, to dig deep. And Carlos Welter, you gotta give him a game ball. He hit some big, field goals to get cut into that lead, and especially the one that he made make it 16-10. That was from 45 yards. Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah. Well, Carlos was a clutch kicker. And, we had 200% confidence in him. And, Erickson never hesitated sending him out there. And, but, we started out the game so well. I mean, the first drive of the game, we drive all the way down and put it right in their mouth. And then we just kind of stumbled the rest of the half. I mean, I think 3 interceptions. We ran a drop play, and I'm blocking out Suzuki, and he just so happens to spin in his hand, hits the football. Steve had a wide open hole for, I don't know, at least 20 yards, and just happen to spin as I'm trying to push it even further, and his hand hits the ball, and they recover. Um, little things like that. But I think it was God's plan for this game to be like it was, because if we'd have continued to move the ball like we did and blown them out, I don't think the significance of this game and the rivalry, I don't think takes it to that next level, because you had subsequent wide whatever's wide rights, wide lefts, and it just added to the lore of the rivalry. But as far as regular season games go in the 90s, that was the number one hype game, and I think Notre Dame, Florida State was the number two in 93. And there really weren't any other games that were even close. And then in the 80s, you had the Oklahoma-Miami game, but that was one of the top 10 most hyped regular season games, I think, of all time. And the ratings, even though it was a 12 o'clock game, the ratings were excellent.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Everybody was watching.
Yeah, and at that time, Keith Jackson, Bob Greasy, they did that game, and it was always, the big games. I remember vividly, 12 o'clock noon. Those the big games should be on 12 noon. I mean, compared to what it is today.
Keith Jackson is a treasure. I mean, I tell you like this. There's some good announcers now. I like Vern Lundquist with the SEC Network. He's retiring, but he was a classic. He was a classic himself. But Keith Jackson was the voice of college football. I mean, but Brent Musburger also. I mean, whenever you had one of those two guys announcing your game, you knew your game was hyped. And you look at the Miami Oklahoma game in '86 with Brent was hyped. But that Florida State game, I mean, he missed it wide to the right, and then the camera angle of Bobby. I mean, just like you said, you watch cartoons, you maybe watch some wrestling, and then bam, football's on. And if you were lucky enough to get Keith Jackson at 12 o'clock, it was a great day.
Yeah, and did you ever meet Keith Jackson? Did he ever speak to you?
I mean, we saw him, but no, I never got a chance to speak to him. I mean, I think I spoke to Greasy a couple of times because, with him being in Miami.
Yeah.
And us having, interaction with the Dolphins. But, yeah, Keith Jackson, he's my favorite. He's my favorite out of all of them.
Yeah, he was one.
He just knew.
Go ahead.
Say it again?
Yeah, sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, I thought I heard you ask a question.
No, you continue on with Keith Jackson.
Say it again?
No, you can continue on with Keith Jackson. Yeah, keep going.
I couldn't hear you.
No, I said you can keep on going with, you was talking about Keith Jackson. You can keep going.
Oh, Keith Jackson.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at, and you go all the way to the championship in '01, I mean, he was announcing that. And even when he got older, it was precious. And I don't know, as far as college football right now, Chris Fowler does a good job, but I mean, Keith Jackson, and then here, I'm a little older, you may not remember this guy, Lindsey Nelson.
Yeah, I
when I was
remember.
real young, he had a unique voice, but I would say Keith Jackson and Brent Musburger are the top two in my generation. And actually, looking at it now, I can't see anybody now that is close to those two. The guy Brad Nessler is not bad. I guess he took Vern Lundquist's place on the SEC broadcast, but Vern Lundquist was also a treasure, but Keith Jackson is, in my opinion, the best college football announcer.
Yeah, you're right. You talk about Keith Jackson and things they did. Yeah, I'm familiar with Lindsey Nelson. He's before my time, but I've heard of him. But again, like you have hit it right on the head. Keith Jackson was special, man. You knew you had a big game whenever he did a game. His voice, his cadence, everything he said, it's just incredible. Brent Musburger. Yeah, you're right. Today's announcers are not on the same level with, Brent or Keith. And they've one of a kind. Against Chris Fowler, he's good, you're right, but no, he's not on the level with, Keith,
No, I
Brent.
mean, there was a guy, actually the guy that did our first Thursday night game. He used to do the University of Texas game. I can't remember his name.
Ron
He had
Franklin.
a special voice, and he used to be with Mike Godfrey, but
Ron Franklin.
I can't think of his name. Huh?
Ron Franklin.
Yes. Yes, he was good too.
Yeah, he was good too.
But
Ron Franklin.
he had a personal issue, and I think they terminated his contract, but he was extremely good. And, Bob Greasy wasn't the greatest with the facts, but, he would sometimes mess up a name or whatever, but, from a football standpoint of breaking the game down, he did a really good job. But, I mean, just him and Keith together, they anybody would Keith.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and Musburger, he had a unique voice too. Now you're listening, you are here live. He had signature statement. It's just, I'm not going to say that, there won't ever be anybody as good as those two. Ever. I mean, because Vern Lundquist, is in the same age range as them. And I mean, I think he elevated the SEC games with his commentary. His oh my's and whatnot. Matter of fact, now that I think about it, we had Dick Enberg for the championship game in '91 when we beat Nebraska. Dick Enberg.
Yeah, Bill Walsh.
If I'm not mistaken. And Bill Walsh, man, he wasn't bad as a commentator. It didn't seem like he was a UM fan because he really didn't give us much love.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were a lot of, I think honestly that also hyped up college football back then, is that there were just some great commentators to hype the games up. And, you knew it was a big game because you got all of the media attention, so there wasn't a 24-hour news window. So, the big game got all of the big attention. And then back then, not every team was on TV. So, it was special to get a national TV game.
Yeah, so let's fast forward to the Nebraska game. That's the game that Dick Enberg did, the Orange Bowl on NBC. You win 22-0. The thing about that game is that's the catch that Lamar Thomas made. He took his helmet off and he went right into the end zone and lifted up the helmet. The U helmet. I mean, just incredible play by Thomas. It's very low scoring game from your standards, but you dominate on defense and win it's the fourth championship, and overall it was your third national championship. To close out your career. Talk about that.
Well, that team right there in '91 had the greatest linebacker trio, my personal belief, in college football history. Darren Smith, Jesse Armstead, and Michael Barrow. When we played Houston earlier in the year, they were running, the run and shoot, which is, back then, which is the version of the modern day air raid offense. We played no snaps of nickel. As a matter of fact, we didn't play one snap of nickel all year that year because Darren Smith was running a 4-4, low 4-4, 4-4-1, 4-4-2. Jesse Armstead was running 4-4-5, 4-4-7 on the other side, and Mike Barrow was about a 4-5-5 maybe in the middle, and we were able to match slot receivers step for step. And then that allowed us to play the run and blitz off the edge and cover. Now, we didn't have the dominant defensive tackle like those other two teams did when we won the national championship. Like, actually 87 really didn't have it. We had Jimmy Jones was coming into his own, and Derwin Jones was just a big lug. He's 6'4", 295, 300. In '89, we had Cortez and Russell. And actually, more than that, because we were 8-9 deep on the defensive line. But this team team had a gang of defensive ends, and we were really the first team to use what they call the NASCAR package. When we played Houston that year, we started 4 defensive ends, and I think we were the number 1 defensive scorer that year. And Nebraska actually was the number 1 team in rushing when we played them, and it was a rainy night, and we kicked them right in the teeth defensively. And on the other side of it, we at the end of the game, we got the ball with about 9 minutes left, a little bit under like the 8-minute mark, and we ran the clock out. We literally took the ball and ran it down their throats and ran the clock out. Larry Jones got MVP. We had 2 guys who ended up playing 10 years in the NFL, 10 years plus, and both went to Pro Bowls. Darrell Williams, who to this day owns the record for the fastest 40 time in safety, ran a 4.34, and then Ryan McNeil, who was a 6'2" corner. And so, we had Rusty Medeiros, who was All-American, and Kevin Patrick, Darren Crine on the other side. So we had All-Americans at all 3 levels, and they controlled the game. Anthony gave us a little trouble at Florida State, but other than that, I don't think any running back. Oh, my bad, I forgot all about Marshall Faulk. That guy was special.
Yeah.
The guy was special.
Yeah, I remember.
I mean, watching him as a true freshman from the sidelines, it's one thing to watch it on TV, but when you see the moves live, and you know how good our defensive players are and how fast they are, and for him to do some of the things he did against us, and we knew he needed so many yards to be, all-time freshman, break all-time freshman rushing record, and we were like, he's not gonna get it on us. That's what Mike Barrett was saying all week. He got it on us. He just was that damn good, and he didn't really have a lot of help. It was just him. He just makes it, other than Marshall Faulk, nobody really gave our defense any problems. Hello?
Okay, yeah, okay. All right, so now let's get into that's the end of your career. Your career is over. The NFL. Talk about the NFL draft in '92. You got drafted by the Rams.
Yeah, I got drafted by the Rams in the 12th round. I spent a year and a half with them, and then I played in the Canadian League for a couple years. I played in the Arena League for a couple years. Played in the World League for a couple years. I mean, I got a chance to play in all of the different leagues. Canada was interesting. I mean, I guess in a sense, I was blessed enough not to have to play in Canada in the Canadian League, because there was about a 4-year span where Canada expanded the league into America, and they had American franchises. And 94, I played in Las Vegas, which that was a hell of a time. And then in 95, actually, I think I'm on record as being the only person ever to do this. I spent March of 95 through November of 95 playing professional football. I went from the World League directly to the Arena League, directly to the Canadian and the San Antonio franchise. Each one of those teams, World League team, we lost in the World Bowl at home. Still hurts. My Arena League team won the Arena Bowl, and San Antonio, we lost in the conference finals to Baltimore, who ended up losing to Calgary that year in the Grey Cup. So each one of my teams made it at minimum to the conference finals. So I spent 34 weeks playing professional football consecutively.
Okay, so you played the offensive line during your time at Miami. It was the center position. Were you the first black offensive lineman to play center for Miami?
Actually, Darren Handy was there before me. He spent 1990 as the center. Let me think about it. I think other than me and Handy, Rod Holder was, if I'm not mistaken, Rod Holder, who was the center on the '87 team before he got hurt. Rod Holder was the first black center we had. Rod Holder was the first one in '87, and then Darren Hanley was in '90 and in '91, and we had what? And then my backup was a guy by the name of Terrell Green,
Yeah.
and then he followed me in '92, and then Casey Jones came, and Terrell moved to guard, and then to be honest with you, I don't think we've had a black center since then. Let me think. No, but we will have one in 22, Ja'Kai Clark. So, yeah, 1, 2, 4 guys,
Yeah.
4 black centers.
So you probably the rare, commodity to play that position. Also, I want you to break down to listening audience about the center position, because obviously the center position, you gotta snap the ball to the quarterback, but just describe the nuances of what a center has to do, its responsibilities dealing with that offensive line, other than just snapping the ball to the quarterback.
Well, I mean, honestly, the center is probably the smartest guy on the center and the quarterback are the 2 smartest guys in your offense. Because as the center, even in today's watered down version of the responsibilities they give the kids, the center has to call the front, whether it's an even front or an odd front, and then he has to locate the Mike linebacker, because the Mike linebacker, or the middle linebacker, is how you set your pass protections and your blocking schemes. Everything is off of the Mike linebacker. Now, some teams have the quarterback do it, call the Mike out. Most teams have the center at minimum calling. Some teams have the center and the quarterback call it out, but most of the time, the center makes the line calls. And then, depending on how they shift, he has to make the audible calls, because you may come up and you got like a man protection, and then they come up and put linebackers in the gaps, and you don't know if they're really going to blitz. You know they're not going to blitz all of them, but you can't take a chance. So you go from a man protection to what we call a slide protection, or a zone area protection, in which everybody just takes a step left or right and just takes that gap to the left side of them or the right side of them. As I got older, I could actually start reading coverages, because, when those guys line up over you or over the guards, there's only so many things, there's only so many fronts and schemes that they could be running. And so, the game slowed down a lot, where I could come up to the line, and if you looked out over the slot and you saw the safety, you knew that they were probably coming with a slot corner blitz. And then if you could look over the Mike linebacker and see a safety behind him, you knew they were in either cover 3 or man coverage. If you looked up and you saw 2 guys behind the Mike linebacker, you knew they were either in cover 2 or 2-man, some type of 2, umbrella coverage. But, that's something that comes with repetition and experience. But the center has to be a student of the game. I played on teams where I had to educate the quarterback. Matter of fact, I played in the Canadian League game where I played center, guard, and tackle all in one half. And I still had to make the calls out from tackle. I actually have to take this call. Is that going to be a problem?
Well, yeah. Okay, you gotta take the call. I can bring you back. Hopefully, it don't take that long. But
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, thanks.